Because of climate change, we know that the Sahara is turning green.
So plants are growing across the desert.
And this is a huge problem for the Amazon rainforest.
Amazon rainforest.
The Amazon rainforest is often referred to as the lungs of the planet.
It is disappearing at a record rate.
In fact, this is a problem for many parts of the world.
Weather experts say that it's being hit by the most destructive windstorm in decades.
But it is nothing compared to what Europe is dealing with, the worst winter weather in decades.
People don't realize is that the Arctic is changing faster than pretty much anywhere else on the planet.
We hardly have years.
Why is this happening?
See it, Saharan dust.
Saharan dust.
Saharan dust.
Big plume of Saharan dust working its way from Africa.
Dust that's coming off of Africa that will travel across the Atlantic.
Everywhere around the world, there are storms of dust that come from the Sahara Desert. And without it, the world will turn into chaos. I am not exaggerating, but here's the thing. Everyone talks about how incredible it would be to turn the Sahara green. But I want to show you the dark side of that idea. What will happen to the world when the Sahara completely turns green? The Amazon rainforest is the largest forest in the world, and the Sahara Desert is the largest desert in the world. Combined, these two regions make up almost 10% of the Earth's land mass. So any changes in one region will slowly affect the whole world. If you watched my last video, you already know why the Sahara is turning green. This video, however, is inspired by one specific comment. This comment comes from Daniel, who wrote, "If the Sahara goes completely green, this will be detrimental to the Amazon rainforest. It will die from the lack of mineral-carrying winds from the Sahara that literally keeps it alive." Well, it turns out that Daniel is actually right.
See it, Saharan dust.
Saharan dust.
Saharan dust.
So first of all, what's Saharan dust? It's exactly what it sounds like. Dust from the Saharan desert there in Africa.
It's dust that's coming off of Africa that will travel across the Atlantic towards the Caribbean and most likely towards the Gulf.
Every year, about 182 million tons of mineral-rich dust from the Sahara Desert are carried across the Atlantic Ocean by winds.
More than 27 million tons of that dust makes it to the Amazon each year.
And here's the key. The Amazon rainforest soil doesn't have enough nutrients on its own.
The researchers explain the Amazon soil lacks important nutrients, including phosphorus, because rain washes it away before plants have a chance to absorb it.
The entire forest relies on this dust from the Sahara to survive. Impressive, right? A dead desert feeds a living forest. This process is a natural balance that has existed for thousands of years. So, here's the problem. If the Sahara completely turns green, the winds that carry the dust might stop, and without this nutrient flow, the Amazon would struggle to maintain its biodiversity. But there is a catch. We don't have solid proof that the Sahara turning green is going to kill the Amazon. In fact, historical evidence shows us that the Sahara Desert was once green during the African humid period, and the Sahara dust still managed to reach the Amazon back then. So I know I started by saying the Amazon would be affected, and now I'm saying the Amazon will not be affected. I'm contradicting myself. But that's not only me. Even scientists don't fully agree on this matter. All that we do know and agree upon is that the Amazon rainforest has existed for tens of millions of years, long before the Sahara Desert turned green during the African humid period. However, the Amazon hasn't always looked the way it does today. It has survived extreme climate changes in the past. such as the last glacier maximum, a period when much of the Sahara died out. But when the earth warmed around 11,000 years ago, during the African humid period, the Amazon expanded once again. Archaeological evidence show that the Amazon wasn't a dense, impenetrable jungle during this period. The Amazon was less of a dense forest and more of a diverse landscape of forests, grasslands, and human settlements. Charcoal deposits from the area show that people used fires to clear sections of the forest, creating large settlements. Then fast forward from this period to 5,000 years ago, the Sahara began turning into a desert. As a result, dust storms were carrying essential minerals across the Atlantic, and the Amazon became much denser, turning into the rainforest we know today. So what we can learn from the past is that if the Sahara completely turns green, the Amazon rainforest could potentially change into a savanna. That is the worst case for the Amazon. But what about the rest of the world? What changes would we see globally if the Sahara completely turns green? Alright, to explain this, let's imagine a totally different world for a second. A world where the Sahara Desert isn't a desert anymore. Instead, it's this lush, green landscape with rivers, lakes, and tons of plants. Sounds pretty amazing, right? Well, in this world, North Africa would become the new agricultural superpower. With proper infrastructure and investment, they would be growing so much food that they would rival places like the US, Brazil, Ukraine in food production. People will start moving here in huge numbers to take advantage of the opportunities. But of course, when a land becomes valuable, people start fighting over it. So you would see an increase in land disputes over who controls all this newly fertile land. But while Africa would be celebrating, the rest of the world would fall into chaos. Remember those dust storms from the Sahara that fed the Amazon? It turns out those same dust storms do a lot more than just keeping the Amazon healthy. That dust actually also helps keep Europe warm. Here's how it works. The heat and dust from the Sahara helps drive warm ocean currents that flows from the tropic up to Europe. But if the Sahara turns green, there is no more dust, and those currents slow or potentially stop moving. If Europe loses that warm ocean flow, they are in trouble. Winters would get way colder and summers would be shorter. It would feel like Europe's going back to something like the Little Ice Age that happened between 1300 and 1850. As a result, people would need a lot more energy for fuel. It will turn into a huge economic headache. And on top of that, Europe would become more dependent on North Africa for food. Basically, North Africa would be sitting on all the food while Europe is freezing and paying crazy energy bills. But this is the thing, it's not just Europe that would feel the impact.
But what else is good news about the Saharan dust is it has an impact on our tropical systems. So let's say we have a developing tropical wave right here. It's really tapping into that moisture, but it hits this dry layer, this dusty air. That dry air is going to suppress that development. So if it's a developing system, it could get a lot weaker. If it's already a weak system, it could completely fall apart.
Without those dust storms, the Caribbean and US coastal areas would also get hit hard. And let's not forget about Asia. That same Sahara dust also travels over the Indian Ocean and South China Sea, helping to form clouds and rainfall patterns. Simply put, if there is no dust, you get fewer clouds, and fewer clouds means weaker monsoons, which are super important for countries like India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. If monsoons get weaker, farms dry up, water shortages happen, and food production drops. This could cause massive instability across Asia, with people struggling to get food. And when Asia has food crisis, global prices would go up. North Africa wouldn't be able to keep up with the demand because they would still have infrastructure issues and high costs. But wait, there's more.
People don't realize is that the Arctic is changing faster than pretty much anywhere else on the planet.
You know how everyone's worried about the Atlantic ice melting? Well, the Sahara dust actually helps cool the Atlantic by reflecting sunlight back to space. But if there's no dust, the Atlantic would melt even faster. And that would mess up weather patterns across the northern hemisphere of the world. While everyone is dealing with the negative side effects of a green Sahara, we have to move to the Middle East to see some positive benefits.
Africa could affect people who have trouble breathing.
That Saharan dust brings its share of pros and cons.
In the Middle East, we would see less dust in the air and better air quality. Plus, with all that new vegetation from their neighbors, the air would hold more moisture, which means more rain in some parts of the Middle East. But honestly, that's a small win compared to all the chaos that is happening throughout the world. As we move to South America, we see that without the nutrients-rich dust, the Amazon would turn into a savanna, a much drier, less dense landscape. It will lose its status as the biodiversity hotspot that it is today. So yeah, a green Sahara might sound beautiful, but it will throw the whole world out of balance. From everything I've said, here's the wild part that you should understand. The Sahara Desert, which seems like this lifeless, harsh, dusty place, actually plays a key role in maintaining weather patterns across the globe and helps feed the Amazon rainforest. Who could have thought that the world's largest desert exists for the benefit of the world's largest forest? Crazy, right?